made a lot of progressive decisions. I think you have strengthened these meetings. I love seeing all the undergraduates here. I love to see the new competitions that you're hosting, demonstrating some strength in this association, and I encourage you to keep doing that. The other thing that a lot of you are probably less familiar with, but I have to spend a lot of time talking about, is the world of publishing. We are moving to an open access world, and I actually think that your move to Cambridge in an open access journal, you leapfrogged a lot of problems. It's going to change the way we publish. We're going to be paying page charges where we didn't pay them before. And professional societies like the AAEA, who have in the past received significant compensation for publishing our journals, we foresee never getting as much money for our journals in a contract again as we move to an open access world. It's going to change the dynamics for faculty and so forth. My advice to my faculty at Mississippi State is, if you write a grant proposal, increase how much you're going to spend on publication charges from what you used to put in that proposal, because you're going to need it. For those of you that were at the summer meetings last summer and heard my talk about relevance and or elegance, I'm going to take this opportunity to reiterate a few things to you. I think it's really, when we say we're applied economists, and you really think about what that means, it means that somebody outside the profession values what you do. If nobody outside the profession values what we do, then we're not really applied economists. Extension economics has always been about application and always about being valuable to those outside the profession. One thing that I would say that I see is that a lot of our younger members, teaching, research, and extension, want to be relevant to outside. They want to be heard. But those of us more senior need to advise in many cases on how to do that, how to do it appropriately, how to avoid the pitfalls and making mistakes. And finally, I would say, in spite of my push on being relevant, those who are cutting edge researchers that push our techniques, our methodology forward, that is to be recognized. That is to be honored. That's what we want to see in our journals in many instances so that we can make progress. I'm old enough now to see the techniques that we're using today are far beyond the techniques that I learned in grad school, and that's a good thing. And we need to keep rewarding those that push us forward. I want to echo what Tim said yesterday. I'll characterize it as that farmers in all over the world are on a technological treadmill. Willard Cochran, many, many years ago, talked about technological change. All it means that we've got to keep running harder and faster to keep up. When I think about, for our profession, online classes, how do we deliver extension education? How do, podcasts, video, rather than the traditional tools. Data analytics is a research area. I think Tim had it right yesterday when he said that we've got to be ready to adapt and change. But I think there's a lot of barriers in academia and in professional organizations to adaptation. One of them is risk aversion. One of them is mentoring. How many mentoring committees are really going to tell an assistant professor, go out and take a shot at doing something that's kind of wild and crazy that might have a big payoff? No, we're going to tell them, play it safe, get promoted, and then you can go do the wild and crazy stuff. I think the other thing that we really have to talk about is our institutional rigidity. And Tim talked yesterday about how to get a bureaucracy like a university moving, and it's a challenge. Suggesting a new course at my university is a lot of work. But I think in many instances, it is that we get comfortable teaching the same material that we've been teaching for the last 15 years when the world has changed. And one of the things that I've learned as an officer in our association is that, we're pretty good as PhD economists at a lot of things, but sometimes it is not strategic thinking. And we as departments, we as a profession need to think strategically about where we're going, why we're doing, where do we want to be 5-10 years down the road as a profession. Another thing that I pointed out in my talk last summer that has become a passion of mine is about the relationship between science and our society. And I think increasingly we see people on both ends of the political spectrum who disrespect science relative to what we did 30, 40 years ago. I love Otto's quote in his book on the War on Science. Science is never partisan, but science is always political. And since we engage in so many policy debates, I think that is relevant. And he talks about various reasons why there's a battlefield for science, but I want to move on and talk about what do we need to do about it. First of all, we need to talk about communicating outward to others. In the greatest movie ever made about Mississippi, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Pappy O'Daniel says, we ate one at a time in here, we're mass communicating. We need to learn to communicate with the masses. We need to learn to take the very complex analysis that we've done and communicate it to somebody who has taken 0 economics classes in their life. We need to help people understand the results of our work, what are the implications, and do it in language that they can understand. I think another area that I'm increasingly passionate about, I intend to change my undergraduate class in this sense, is that we live in a world where most people, even though they took a lot of science classes, do not understand what scientists do. Partly because they don't understand probability, they don't understand the scientific method, they don't understand the hypothesis test and the kind of language that we use as scientists, and therefore they have a completely misleading perception of what we are doing, what we are saying as scientists. I think as a profession, the first thing that we can do is make sure that no undergraduate graduates from our departments without understanding those things. Don't rely on the chemistry department to teach that, because they're probably not going to do it. And one of the places that we can do this is by incorporating undergraduate research in our undergraduate programs. I also want to talk about relevance in the sense of reaching outside of academia. The first thing I did when I became AAEA president is I asked for the membership roles, and I built this pie chart. And at that time, 3% of the members of the AAEA were working in industry. And I probably was generous in how I designated some people. 3% of our profession membership working in industry. But if you look at our graduates, I surveyed department heads later on that summer. 72% of our non-thesis masters, 58% of our thesis students, and almost a quarter of our PhD students go to work in industry. But then we lose contact with them. And one of the things that I've noticed, and I think being in the College of Agriculture is actually helpful in this, other sciences, other disciplines welcome and engage with industry. And that has not been our tradition. And I think we ought to revisit that and think about it. When
the department heads met last fall in Washington, D.C., Barry. We were sitting there talking about this topic, talking about the students that were going to work at Amazon from Washington State University. Lisa was telling about the graduates of her program that go to work at Disney as econometricians. This is an open door for our profession. Is there room in our profession to keep them engaged with us, to get them to come back to our meetings and tell us about what they're doing, tell us what they need in terms of continuing education, tell us how we can better prepare the next generation of students to go to work in those type of jobs. We have now an ad hoc committee which is looking at this. And for the grad students that are in the room, Ashok Mishra has took the lead on this from Arizona State. We will have a pre-conference at the summer meetings where every speaker works in industry and is going to tell you about what it's like to be an applied economist working in industry. And they're working also. I would love to see an industry section of the AAEA where they could control part of our agenda and they could lead us down this path and explain to those of us in academia what they need and also bring things to our meetings that we could benefit from. Communicating out to policymakers is something, Justin Wolfers talks about, that we're more cited than other social scientists. That's kind of faint praise, to be honest. I talked about this yesterday in a section, and look, Tom Knight, my major advisor, taught me so many things. Tom and I worked together for 27 years. We wrote 27 journal articles together. But he did not prepare me to speak and talk to a politician, a program administrator. And we've got to learn to talk to those people who don't understand objectivity, for whom everything is viewed through a partisan lens, people who are used to being spoon-fed information by $500 an hour lobbyists who are great communicators, and then we come in and talk over their heads. They don't like it. And that's to put it mildly. They hate it. We have to learn to take our very detailed analysis and put it in a form that they can understand. They don't read the AJE, they don't read the JAE. We've got to push our work to them and figure out how to do that. I think we have to understand that sometimes our best guess is better than the information that they have. It's okay to give them a subjective answer. Dan Sumner once said, and I think he makes a great point here, some of the most important policy work may be just some simple data and summary statistics, okay? And I think we've got to understand that sometimes when we talk to policymakers or program administrators, if they accept our third best solution, we ought to declare victory and do the happy dance, because that's about as good as it gets in policy circles, okay? I would encourage members of our profession to do a sabbatical in government. I think we need to encourage more of that. Go to a sabbatical with ERS. Enjoy the Chiefs Kingdom in Kansas City. Go help them out for a while. Work with NEFA. Go to the Hill, wherever it may be. We've had conversations with the Choices editors about pushing Choices articles to staffers and other places, and we need to do a better job of that. I applaud the Graduate Student Association of AAEA, which is developing a policy communication event, working out the details now, but you should see information about that in the near future. For you graduate students, participate in the inaugural event for that. It will be a great learning experience for you. I went to the 3-minute thesis competition here yesterday. I loved it. Those are the kind of things that we need to be doing in addition to the kind of rigorous analysis that we teach our graduate students to also be
able to communicate it effectively. I'm going to stop there. Again, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for all the people in this association who have helped me along the way, that have encouraged me, and certainly if you want to chat about any of these ideas with me, I'll be happy to talk to you after this is over. Thank you.